Peace be unto you, and welcome to this episode of Living in the Most Serious Times, which is a conversation with Muslim American leader Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed. I am Ibrahim El-Amin. I'm joined by Faridah Brown. We are your co-hosts, and again, we welcome you to this program. Before we get into the substance of our conversation today, we would like to make a couple of announcements. Number one, and most importantly, we have the upcoming Muslim American Leadership Day, which will be observed in the city of Newark at Central High School on October 26th at 1 p.m. This event coincides with the birthday of Imam W.D. Muhammad, but it's not a recognition of him as a personality, but a commemoration of his leadership and its succession in the present time. This year also marks 50 years since Imam W.D. Muhammad was selected as leader of the then Nation of Islam after the passing of his father, the late Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We also established the WDM Faith and Just Society Humanitarian Award, which is given to people who have distinguished themselves in various forms of leadership. And this year's inaugural recipient is Newark's own Mayor Raz Baraka. We invite you to come and join us. If you're not able to, the event will be live streamed here on Facebook and YouTube. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Farida and Imam Abdul Malik. Thank you.
Walaikum
Walaikum
assalam.
assalam.
Well, quite a lot has developed as far as news and information these last couple of weeks in between our last broadcast. I would like to ask you, Brother Imam, about the ceasefire agreement that was reached there in Israel and Palestine, and what your thoughts may be on it briefly, if you have anything specific that you would like to share in terms of your perspective on that present situation and how it might possibly be resolved, and whether or not this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, praise be to Allah. Thank you. And good morning to our audience. Well, I believe that any movement toward the cessation of violent, deadly assault on innocent life is positive. And I wouldn't want to speculate or express unrealistic expectations, but for the satisfaction of the aspirations of the Palestinian people, movement toward peace and stability is a positive. And we have in our hearts sincere reflection on the possibilities for the future of the Palestinian people. Much of this is of a political nature, and as we know, the political realities are uncertain and unstable, and there are a lot of competing interests. So our prayers are to God for what is just stability and peace. And we'll be interested and observers of how things unfold.
Thank you for that, Brother Imam. Sister Farida?
Yes. Assalamu alaikum to you and to our audience. I would like to know, given that response and the seriousness, the weight of any movement toward respite, and determination for human dignity. I'd like to move to this side of the Atlantic and look at some of the developments that have been happening recently in our domestic politics. One of which is a commitment or a verbal commitment made by the President of the United States to, I guess, to he vowed to uh, punish one party by firing or getting rid of the. You know that our currently our government is in a shutdown, and so he made a commitment publicly on the record to. Locate and determine those who are of a certain party and punish the political party that he deems worthy of or responsible for this shutdown. Do you have any commentary for us on this move toward authoritarianism and how we might, as those who are looking for a moral strategy to combat this type of development in our government?
There are many ways, I think, to assess what is the present political reality in the United States of America. Historically is a perspective, um, and in the context of a movement of societies for the framing of free values, or what the West refers to as democratic values. That's also a important perspective on interpreting what we are witnessing in the United States. Um, what we know from history is that the movement toward what I refer to, and I think justifiably, not just authoritarian rule, but tyrannical rule. There have been authoritarian leaders who have been benevolent and respectful of their subjects or the populations that they represent. Um, Meaning that uh, an individual had been entrusted with the spirit of the movement of the people for balanced peace and just society. The people in their spirit had invested their hopes in the vision of a particular leader. And that leader and those associated with supporting that leadership in the formal sense accepted that responsibility with a loyalty and vision of service to the best interests of his or her people. um, we know that there have been leaders like that in history. And also, we know that the spirit of establishment on the part of oppressed peoples has sometimes been invested in individuals. And the whole life of the people, in terms of their aspirations for a dignified establishment, could be measured in the vision of one thinker or one leader. So history may speak of such persons, and I don't want to mention any one, but history may speak of such persons as authoritarian. Um, Certainly in the history of the African American people and Muslim African American people, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is in our history a revered figure, could be described as an authoritarian leader. So there's many ways to measure that term, but the concern here for me is tyranny, and that is oppression of the life of the people by way of authoritarian rule. And we see in spiritual history references from sacred scripture to tyrannical leadership. And that is the weighty moral concern. There is a conflict where the debate is whether or not human life, has a moral destiny, or if human life is just a material reality with a material destiny only. That's a major concern in weighing the the difference between authoritarian rule and tyrannical rule. I have seen in recent weeks, coming from elected leaders in the Congress of the United States and also in the state legislatures, representatives of the states, the individual states. In particular, I'm thinking of one state, Illinois, the state of Illinois, the governor of the state of Illinois, and the mayor of Chicago, and also senator, and I believe he's from Illinois too. I have seen in them a principled and thoughtful, and I would say responsible resistance to the movement of tyrannical rule in the United States of America. And it's political in language and perhaps political in nature, but it has in it too an appreciation for the moral destiny of human life, the responsibility of government to serve the best moral interests of the people, and to be conscious of the moral interests of the people, to focus the moral interests of the people, to use language that is political, but to describe the dignity of human life and the responsibility of government to acknowledge and to serve that. I have seen this in recent weeks. And so I am encouraged by that. There is, I would say, credible resistance. And I'm not completely comfortable using that term resistance because it can be interpreted in a way that would suggest something other than what I'm suggesting. By resistance, I mean resistance in the same context that we are informed as Muslims, where Muhammad, the prayers and the peace be on him, the messenger of God, he indicated that there are levels of concern and resistance to tyranny and oppression. And he said that the highest level is to change the concern, to change the condition physically, thoughtfully, and I would even say with a kind of aggressive determination by the hand. And he said, if that's not possible, and he meant by that without the weight and the influence of recklessness, if it's not possible to change things by the hand, then to speak against those things. And if even that's not a possibility, or not wise, or perhaps the persons experiencing the oppression are weakened to the point where they can't speak against it, then they should at least despise it in their heart. And he described the despising of it, the hating of it, as the lowest faith, the lowest faith. So this informs us as believers and as Muslims. And I think we're witnessing now a principled resistance on the part of, or in the context of political commentary that is encouraging. And I believe that in this context, we have that is people of moral vision and people who uphold the certainty that there's a moral destiny for human life, that God has created a moral destiny for human life, that this is a important opportunity for us to also make an important contribution to this discussion and a correction in the direction for the American society and American people.
Thank you. That is very encouraging in this day, and we appreciate the pointing to these this movement, and seeing that in reality in Illinois and Chicago, as you mentioned.
Praise be to Allah. Thank you.
To following up on the answer that you just gave to Faridah's question, Brother Imam, in past commentary that you've made with regard to this development of tyrannical rule in the United States, you made some historical references, particularly to the 1930s in Europe, where you had the coming into power of tyrannical regimes. What would you say? Because when we look at American society, we can't say that in the last few years there was a whole lot of similarity to what some of those societies were experiencing in terms of the social turmoil. It seems to have happened in a very short period of time and without a whole lot of the social upheaval that we typically see when these kinds of governments come into power. What would you say has contributed to the rise of tyrannical rule in the United States under circumstances that might not indicate that that was a possibility?
You know, the moral philosophers, they always point to an erosion of commonly held values, values of decency. And this opens the door for expressions of an extreme nature, and a kind of laziness in the moral senses of the people. And so in that context, rise up oppressors. That's a spiritual perspective. And there are other perspectives. You know, I also think that it's fair to analyze what is happening in the United States of America. I think it's fair to put it also in the category of the damaged and perhaps defeated ego of white male authority. I see that as well. And that there is a significant movement on the part of what we once called the developing world to make a just claim on the resources of the earth to justify establishment of the dignity of those populations, and that the Western establishments dominated by white male authority don't have exclusive rights to the resources of the earth, and that there are other peoples on the earth that have a claim, a just claim, and that is developing with those nations and peoples cooperating with one another to make that claim. And what we refer to as the white Western authority traditionally feels and has felt, maybe in the last 20 years or more, threatened by that movement, and using the influence of American leadership in its highest offices. It has been perhaps discussed and decided that by way of the influence of executive power focused in American leadership, that a movement to reassert the reach and influence of the Western white man in the world would be reasserted and reestablished. So I think that's a fair consideration as well. But there's also something else here, and it's maybe not as easy or not as apparent. It requires spiritual education and insight to measure it, and but there's something existing that wants to make the argument in the life of society and in the life of the human individual that man has the right to challenge God's plan for human life. I think that's in play as well. And I think that it's a strong influence in this time. And there's a hidden hand that is operating in all of the systems that influence the direction for human thinking and human life on the earth that has reasserted its authority over the controls. And it is plan. It has an ancient plan, and that ancient plan could be described as having all the rulers and nations of the earth bow to its vision and authority.
Thank you for that answer, Brother Imam. Sister Farah?
Yeah, so that brings me that the answer that you just gave brings me to something that I've been reflecting on for a while, and it harkens back to something that you shared many years ago, and it was a commentary on leadership, in which you described leadership or one aspect of it as making pathways, creating opportunities for the human soul, the human individual, in its God-given dignity to express itself and find its moral purpose. So this idea of making pathways and providing opportunities makes me think about the previous answer where you referenced. Illinois, and you stated that there was a contribution that we, in our moral picture, and with our moral determination, that we have to make. And so I'm wondering if you might. One of the things that he referenced, the mayor of Chicago, was that as an African American, that he had certain sensitivities that gave him moral clarity when looking at what was unfolding in this age of tyranny. And so that now that we're seeing ourselves in this Muslim American community coming from a distinctly African American experience, what pathways might we provide? What contribution might we make to this conversation on human dignity and the fact that man, every human being has a moral destiny, particularly within this age of tyranny. What specific contribution might we make, and what avenue might we open for those who are eager and striving?
Yes, this is an important question, and uh, in a I guess simplified answer, I would say what we are offering is the Quran perspective and the perspective of Muhammad, um, the prayers and the peace be on him, by way of um, the special tradition of understanding that we have, coming from our experience as African American people. You know, I have said this, and maybe somebody will read it. They have read it, and then they have not completely understood what I meant by it. But I said once that, and I'm saying these things, repeating that which has been established before my life, and before my involvement and contribution in the leadership of our community. But I said that there is no more important product or development in the creation of American society than our story. And I mean the story of the African American people, but I mean also the story of the development of Islamic consciousness in the African American people. Um, it's, I believe, uh, reasonable for us to conclude that God created in us, by way of our circumstances, a particular kind of receptivity for His divine guidance. And it equates to what is described in spiritual understanding as a covenant relationship between human life and God. And to enter into that covenant is a consciousness, an awareness. There has to be an awareness of the existence of the possibility of that kind of relationship. And so our circumstances created a need for us to express that awareness. And once that awareness was expressed, we entered into that contract relationship or covenant relationship. And the most valuable component of that covenant relationship was or is a spiritual vision and a spiritual philosophy that provide for an independence and a particular kind of reliability, preparedness for leadership. The Quran, it says of um Prophet Muhammad that, did we not find you wandering and give you guidance? And then it says, did we not find you needy and give you independence? And uh, it also refers to him as um, an orphan. This is um, commentary on what was existing in Prophet Muhammad's understanding of the establishment of the human person in society, the question of the establishment of the human person in society. And in a simplified expression, the experience of the African American people in America is a consideration of what is the destiny of human life in society. That's the question. Separated from responsibility for self, separated from responsibility for community development, separated from resources of the earth to support that development, and also separated from the cultural, social supports that God has created that stand human life up. African American people were separated from all of those things, and even separated from the pathways of education or information that support the development of philosophies of life that aid in the construction of society, separated from all of that, and deliberately separated from the primary and absolutely necessary element for the proper development of human life, that is human identity itself. So here's a people separated from all of that, and in essence, emptied out of their natural supports and entitlements as human beings. So restoration comes by way of first a consciousness that you have been created by God, and that God has created for you a destiny, and you're entitled to make a claim on that destiny and to live in the promise of that destiny. And once you come clear on that reality, you seek God's protection, you seek his aid, you seek his support, and you devote yourself to his way. In response to that movement in the soul of the slave, God gave guidance. And that guidance was not just for the establishment of the African American people, but it was for that because the guidance couldn't be offered to mankind except that the people themselves become established upon it. So it dawned in their spiritual nature, it's dawning in their material hopes presently, and it represents a possibility for a new reality for human life on this earth, connected to or inextricably connected to that which God established when he created the first human in the purpose for which he created that human. So we offer insight, vision, leadership, principle, philosophy of education, philosophy of economics, philosophy of social structure, all based upon this needy soul that God answered with his divine guidance. And in some periods, the way in which that is expressed into the life of society will be as resistance to the movement that the society is going. In other periods, it will be manifest as a kind of material, social philosophy of establishment. And our leaders, they, because of the experience itself and the direction of guidance and the specifics of the tradition that we have, will understand the moment and what is necessary in that moment in terms of answering the responsibility that we have to serve progress for society. So we are very special people, and with a very special responsibility, a sacred responsibility. And maybe the nations of the earth and its leaders won't be able to see us clearly presently for a number of reasons, but they sense that we're here. They sense that we're here, that there is a people on the earth that have a particular moral vision and have been prepared for leadership. So I don't know, you know, I know that our people, that is specific to our group, they have they have their thinking and their plans for establishing leadership, but I can't see that they can separate themselves from the commentary of the successor of Imam W.D. Muhammad. I listen to them, and they're not talking like I am.
No, sir, they're not. I have a feeling that we've gotten a preview of what's in store for Muslim American Leadership Day. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a message for America, and it's my responsibility. I accept that responsibility. I have a message for Newark. I have a message for the Muslim African American people. I have a message for Muslim leaders in our address in Newark.
Obviously, the picture of Muslim life in America is a multicultural and a multi-ethnic one. But as you clearly laid out, the social history and the circumstances of the community of Imam W.D. Muhammad are very specific, very unique, not just in the context of America, but in the world itself. What can other Muslim communities who have obviously immigrated to the United States draw from our experience in terms of strengthening themselves as Islamic communities and also establishing themselves here in America? We obviously know that they have uh, gained a great deal as a result of our experiences and our determinations. But I think that in recent years, especially since Imam W.D. Muhammad's passing, there's been some distance and generational shifts. A lot of the younger people now might not have a very clear memory of us and of Imam W.D. Muhammad, what he meant for Muslims in America. What might they draw from our experiences looking at us now and looking at how we are presently constituted? Under your leadership, I should say.
Well, we are lacking material establishments. And so it may be difficult for immigrant populations or the children of the immigrant population of Muslims that have come here, it may be difficult for them to appreciate us um, because they have these very well established material presence. And so they look at us and they say, well, what could you possibly have to offer us in view of the fact that many of your people are looking to us for material support? And also, they see that we did once have school, presence, and that has been weakened in recent years. So they see these things, and I think that I've seen. I'm a witness to the spirit in their leadership that doesn't see us as having a lot of value, except from some sort of nostalgic memory of the social spirited movements in the 60s and 70s or something like that. And maybe their reference to Imam W. Muhammad has to do with a focus on the supremacy of the Quran and the prophethood of Muhammad in a very formal sense. So, in other words, a kind of correction for the theology of the Nation of Islam. They might see that and have some degree of appreciation for that. But what I've described, they're not sensitive to it. Only the ones who have really looked carefully at what took place with us and what Islam, what it represents for reformation in the spiritual nature of man and the establishment of a vision for human society. If you have that sensitivity, you can see us. And you see that the manifestation of our leadership is over a long arc of development. So if they would some of them, if they would look at the history of Islam as it developed in their societies, and they'll see that it didn't come by way of establishment in just a few years. The moral vision for Islam as a leadership direction for human society was established in Muhammad the Prophet. But as it manifests itself in these various peoples, it took a long time. It took hundreds of years. And if those leaders, immigrant leaders in America, if they were to reflect on their own history as Muslim peoples, they would see how they were transformed and the period of time that it took. So the same is true of us. And within that context, there are challenges, challenges to our social identity as a people, manipulations and schemes to overtake us, even from within the Muslim leadership itself, to overtake our dignity as a special people or a distinct people within the social history of Islam. So I'm satisfied that the direction that we're going presently it has the trajectory and the impulse to continue to its success and that we're in the right time and in the right gear for the progress that God approves for us. And even the challenges that we face are within the context of God's plan to strengthen us. I have said that my importance, if I can put it like that, has to do with something that developed in the soul of our people for expression. And I'm seeing that it's gaining support and confidence and support coming from our people for my leadership in continuing in the vision and plan of Imam W. Dean Muhammad.
In light of that response, I just would like to ask one question, returning to the idea of the covenant that you raised earlier in this discussion. And the most important covenant, of course, being that between the human being and God. And there was a covenant that was made specifically with the new people, African American people, in the bowels of American chattel slavery. But I'm wondering if uh, there was a covenant with the community of Imam Warthuddin Muhammad. Um, can 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 there be that label placed upon the relationship between a people and the leadership with which they were blessed by the Creator? And if so, if that idea needs to be corrected, please do so. But if that idea is correct, if that is a correct picture of it, what would be the responsibility or the terms of the covenant for those who are party to it and who are present in this day?
A good question. Um, it's to be answered in the soul, okay? And I know that many people can't um, approach that answer properly. They don't know how to approach that answer properly, or approach what I'm referring to properly. Um, there is a covenant between the Muslim African American people and God, a special, particular importance. The promise of God to Abraham was that leaders would be established. And Abraham, he asked for this. He asked particularly for this, that from his people or from his thinking, which is Abraham represents the highest development of the moral vision for human society in ethical establishments. This is Abraham. So he asked for from his progeny leaders. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and I've said this before, you all have heard me talk about this, coming from the sensitivities of an oppressed soul, with innocence, asked God before he met his teacher in Detroit, Michigan, Mr. W.D. Farad, before he met him, before he knew anything about him or even perhaps Islam, had no acquaintance with it in a form that he could respect. What he knew of expression spiritually and in terms of faith was the Christianity that had been given to the African American people. So his expression, sincere and straight, but perhaps in the language of what has been given to our people of religion. But he asked God innocently for an understanding and a footing that would be autonomous, independent of oppressive authority, and operating with God's approval, with his support. So Elijah Muhammad had in him already an appreciation and a receptivity for God's hand of support for establishment of our people in an autonomous way, in an independent way. It's certain that he wasn't clear on how that would be manifest. But when he met his teacher, that receptivity and that concern he felt was reconciled by what his teacher was offering him. Here, he thought, is the evidence of God's recognition and support of our calling out for his assistance and for his help. And then comes his son, who can't accept the conflicts within the order of the Nation of Islam. He can't accept the conflicts with what he knows to be, or what he senses to be, universal interest of man, that is the universal interest of man to be established with God's approval. He can't reconcile the conflicts, and they're not reconcilable. And so in his youth, he expresses this as a wanting or a desire to have a relationship with God that God approves. So here's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad asking for an approval of an autonomy. And here is his son asking for a philosophy of life, an understanding that God approves, that can be established within that same spirit of autonomy. In other words, a leadership understanding and leadership language. And a perception of what should be in focus that represents success for that movement. So what should be in focus? It should be the establishment of the African American people autonomously, but in reconciliation with the purpose for which God created human life. And that's what we have. More than any other time, at least in our lifetimes, those of us who are living now, human life is in need of this kind of understanding and vision. A vision of society that establishes distinct peoples in their dignity, while at the same time reconciling their expressions of dignity and their aspirations for establishment in society, reconciling that with the universal aim of the human soul as God created it, so that society itself exists in every distinct expression as a support for that movement in the soul of man. We have that vision that has been established in us, and it is guided and supported by what God revealed to Muhammad the Prophet. And so we have a vision of Muhammad the Prophet's leadership in terms of providing access to all of the populations on this earth to the embrace of the promise and the dignity that is associated with human life in its original creation with its original plan.
Thank you, Brother Imam. Thank you for that. I almost think that we can end it there. We do have a couple of moments left, and I wanted to kind of perhaps bring some of our questioning to Muslim American Leadership Day, and in particular, the establishment of the W. Dean Mohammed Faith and Just Society Humanitarian Award. Can you explain what the underlying philosophy is of this particular recognition and why this year we chose Mayor Ras Baraka as the inaugural recipient?
It's a big answer, you know. Imam W. Dean Mohammed, he thought of me as being someone who would represent him in these important distinctions that I have mentioned in this discussion that we've had today. He thought of me as someone that would represent him properly. He said that to me, and he said that to us, that he trusted me with that. And the Imam of Rochester, New York, he and I were having a discussion. It's been over a year now, and he said to me that he thought that we should have some kind of award or recognition given to leaders that exhibited the values that we point to, whether they be Muslim or not, is of lesser concern. But the vision that they uphold and that they work for, and that they the spirit in which they serve their constituencies is parallel to these values that we have put in focus, and that have been put in focus for us by Imam W. Dean Mohammed. So in that discussion, the Imam of Rochester, he opened up a sensitivity in myself to respond to that, and so I gave him that language that we're using, and we thought that I think initially we thought maybe that we would have this award given in Rochester at the Independence Day meeting that we have there annually, and then we thought that it might be better to have it for this Muslim American Leadership Day and put Imam W. D. Muhammad's name on it. And you know, I'm thinking to myself that would Imam W. D. Muhammad, would he accept that this award be named after him or in recognition of his leadership? And I believe he would. And I think that he would certainly accept the mayor of Newark to be the first recipient of it. And I have commented on the mayor of Newark. I have I believe, a sound understanding of what his concern is for the people of Newark. And he is a son of this synergy of spiritual freedom expressions in the social spirit of the people of Newark. He's a son of that sensitivity and influence. And he has a particular political understanding and philosophy. And it has in it moral vision and it has in it a concern for justice. And it is born from the influence of his father and the social dynamics that are unique to the city of Newark. And Imam W.D. Muhammad made it clear that those social dynamics that are unique to the city of Newark are also universal in their description of an environment and a condition in the psyche of human life where man becomes aware of the elements of their relationship with God and whether or not they are measuring up to that expectation. And to the extent that they accept responsibility to measure up, Newark represents the promise of the possibilities for the establishment once human life comes to an appreciation of those elements and a recommitment to those. So Newark is new arc, as we've said, and a new appreciation for the components of the Ark of the Covenant. In the spiritual sensitivities of Mayor Ras Baraka's political philosophy is a embrace of the principles associated with what I just described. So I think that he is the most suitable to be recipient of this award. And we pray to God for his strength and continued service to the people of Newark.
Well, thank you, Brother Imam, for that answer, but also too, thank you for the time that you've taken out of your day to be with us this morning. Sister Faridah, any parting words?
No, I thank you. I'm grateful for your time, as Imam Ibrahim said. And I would just like to add that also one of the distinguishing features of Mayor Ras Baraka's leadership is that he was a former educator. And as far as opening pathways for human beings, that is one of the fields which is most fit and apt to do so. So I think that's an important component of his leadership tradition.
Also, we want to thank our listening audience, both here on YouTube and Facebook, as well as those that may catch this program at a later date in its recorded format. Again, Muslim American Leadership Day, October 26, 2025, in the city of Newark at Central High School. That morning, ahead of Imam Earl Abdulmalik Mohammed's address, there will be a panel discussion that will consist of several members of the Muslim African American community, some of his brightest minds, giving their perspective on the leadership tradition of Imam W.D. Muhammad and its succession in this present time. You can learn more by visiting www.muslilamericanministry.com. You can also visit our event pages on YouTube and Facebook. We thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again